not only did I meet Claudia as a result of Expert Empires in January, I also met a good friend of mine now, Jay Allen. So you probably know that Jay and I have got a separate venture together. We run a mastermind, but he is a keynote speaker. He's spoken in 37 countries around the world. Doesn't really go into too much detail about what he does, but he is an index of books and quotes. So Charlotte, if he mentions any books in this, it's not for you to go away and order them off Amazon. Jay, over to you.
God bless you. Thank you so much, my friend. Delighted to be with you this afternoon. And at the tail end of what has been the most incredible afternoon of sharing and learning, I've got pages and pages and pages of notes, but also pages and pages of things that I've now learnt or from people in the room that I've now got to go back and link people to, because that's what being here today is all about. So without further ado, let's quickly share the screen. I know that you said I've only got 45 minutes today, so I'll keep it as brief as possible. Hopefully you can see my screen. Fab. So without further ado, let's start from there. Money, Mindset, Motivation, Circle Success Summit. Just like Heather, I'd like to start off by sharing with you some dark and dismal news that 80% of business owners are wrong about everything. Let's have a look at that rather than just a made-up figure. There are 1% of business owners in every sector, in every industry right now that are nailing it, that are smashing all of the goals and the targets and are doing particularly exceptionally well. Certainly, I'm old enough to be able to recall two guys called Steve setting up a business in one of their parents' garages. And yet in my business lifetime, going on to become the leading electronics company in the world, otherwise known as Apple. There's a further 4% of businesses in every sector, in every industry right now that are doing particularly well and growing quite significantly, but perhaps haven't quite got that automated, systemized omnipresence that allowed them to be able to move into that unique 1% club. And there's a further 15% of businesses in every sector, in every industry, the world over right now, that are doing more traditional, typical growth patterns of year on year on year on year. But statistics also show us that 60% of businesses are struggling, are managing, are coping, are getting by. And Companies House shows us that 20% of businesses in every sector, in every industry, fail and close every year. Now, I don't know about you, but I never set out in business to be either get by or to fail. And therefore, I never wanted to be in the 80%. I want to be in the top part of the 20%. The reason for sharing this with you is that the next time that you look across to one of your local or regional competitors and think, they've started doing podcasts, we're going to have to do a podcast. They've got a new website. How much does a new website cost? They've gone to Voicon and they've got this. How on earth do we manage to do? Stop looking at the competition and thinking that you've got to compete. Stop looking externally and start to look internally, because it's what makes you different that'll segment you from everybody else, that'll push you forward into the 4 and 1% club. Jamie was kind enough to be able to share that we met a couple of years ago now and have been friends or become friends ever since, to the extent that we now work collectively together. Just as a very brief introduction, that was me taken in 1990, just prior to going to Northern Ireland before the peace treaty. I spent my first 12 years in uniform as a servant of Her Majesty the Queen, in a rapid deployment role in the British Armed Forces. Since then, I've gone on to either buy, acquire, or set up 4 of my own businesses, having grown and scaled successfully twice and exited in successful businesses. Had one flop between the two, an e-commerce business that didn't do so well when the algorithm changed overnight. But nevertheless, in my 4th iteration now, working as a business scale-up coach, the author of Adazero, 2 books. And I wanted to quickly get in the fact that the sequel, Adazero Scale to Summit, is launched tomorrow. It was due to be published this morning. And when I said to the publisher, I can't do that, I'm already speaking in the afternoon and I need a full day to be able to publish it. So the Scale Up to Submit start, the sequels to my first book is launched as of midnight tonight, that I'm really quite successful and looking forward to being able to share with people to be able to get that message out even further. And that's where all of the statistics that I've just shared with you are printed within the book and showing you where we got those and how to be able to utilize and work with them. But today I want to quickly share with you a quote that I took from Warren Buffett when I sat and had lunch with him in 2012 in America. Now, again, just for full transparency, there were about 900 other people at the lunch, and Warren was up on stage talking about the launch of his 174th business, and I was sat in the cheap seats at the back. But in real terms, I was at lunch with Warren. But one of the things that he said it in such a way that it struck me so deeply that when I came back from the States, I ended up having it as a decal printed on the wall of my office. And he said, most people think small, whereas I automatically think big, and it gives me the advantage. So today, very briefly, I wanted to share with you about how to stop thinking small, to start thinking far, far bigger, and how that's going to have such an impact on every decision that you make from this day forward for the rest of your life in being able to grow and scale up your business. And it comes by starting with the end in mind. Most business owners start by thinking, how do I generate my first income? How do I generate enough money to be able to live on for this month? And where do I get my first customer from? What do I need to do? And we start by getting into the minutiae. We start by thinking about today and then how to be able to build out the day. Whereas Warren shared over these 90-minute presentation, talking about how he generated over $104,000 in the first day of operating his new business. Warren starts by determining as to how long is he going to own the business before he sells it as a success. So what I'd like to share with you is 4 questions. I call them 4 killer questions about how to think differently, act differently, and achieve differently from today onwards for the rest of your business career. Now, just to put this into context, in the last 7.5 years, I've asked this question over 10,000 times to business owners in 34 different countries. I've asked this question collectively to almost 500,000 different business owners. And so far, I've met less than 24 people that have been able to accurately and succinctly answer all 4 questions. Therefore, don't beat yourself up or blame yourself if you look at yourself blankly when I start asking the questions. But I guarantee you, once you've been able to sit with them and to start to give considerations to what the answers might be for you, it'll transform your thinking, your actions, and the results within your business. So without further ado, let's look at question 1. On what date do you want to be able to successfully sell your current business? Now, you might be sat there thinking, hang on a minute, I've only just started. I don't want to sell it. Why would I want to sell it? Well, my question would go back to this, and it's, what are you in business for? Is it to continue to be a slave to the laptop and to the phone and to the WhatsApp and to be able to put your family and your life on hold whilst you be subservient to somebody else and achieving their success? Or is it because you want to be able to achieve something that enables you to be able to have time freedom and financial freedom in order to be able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want for the rest of your life? For me, it's being able to own a place like this and to be able to take time out and then to be able to make the choice to come back and do the things that I want to be able to do as and when I want to do them, as opposed to the necessity. And that's achieved by being able to establish, when do you want to be able to be able to successfully sell the business? Come up with a date, not just, well, by the time I'm 55, by the time I'm 60, in 10 years or so. Come up with a date as to when you would like to be able to effectively, successfully sell your business. Question number 2, how much do you want to be able to sell it for? How much do you want to be able to sell it for on that date that's going to give you sufficient income that if you chose never to work again and just to enjoy life and everything it has to offer, how much money do you need to be able to make? If you don't know, and again, yes, I'm quoting a book, there's a wonderful book called Enough ? That helps people to understand is exactly what their enough figure is. So how much do you want to be able to sell it for, either to do whatever you want to do next, or to be able to invest in something else, or to be able to take a sabbatical that I did when I sold my first business? How much do you want to sell the business for, and be happy with the outcome? Be happy with what you receive on that day. Whether the person who buys it doubles your business in 12 months or closes it the week afterwards, how much money do you want to sell the business for, and be happy with the revenue that you receive from it? The third question, even more profound, is who's likely to sell it? In order to be able to sell a business, you need to understand who your buyer is. It takes between 12 and sometimes 3 years of preparation in order to effectively sell the business for what it's truly worth. Certainly a minimum of 12 months planning and preparations to prepare a business for sale, just like you might take out a lick of paint and tidy up the living room as such, or do something with the front door before you put a house on the market to be able to get the best rate for it on the street. So preparing a business for sale is a 1 to 3 or 4 year planning process in order to be able to get the best outcome from it. So who do you want to sell it to, and what will they need to see from the business in order to be able to get the best value for your time and effort that you've put into it? In my head, the moment I'm ready to preparing a business for sale, I cease to be the managing director and I start thinking about, I am now the custodian of this business for whoever I'm going to sell it to. What do I need to do in this business in order to make it the most viable option and the most sensible option for them to move forward from? And I start to think about it as a potential buyer rather than as the current seller. So who might choose to buy your business from you? Who are you going to sell it to or sell it into? And then finally, the most profound of all questions is, why would they pay that for it? If you go back to what we answered on question 2, why on earth would they give you all of their hard-earned money for something that they know little about? It's about being able to take your mind out of that of a buyer and into the mind of a seller to be able to understand as to the ongoing value of the business beyond your involvement in it. And it's by taking a different look at your business and your role within it, and the role that the business has within society or in the community or in your profession, that will change your thinking. It will change the actions that you take, and it will completely change the outcome that you achieve. I've been running Mastermind now for 17 years. I started in Mastermind in my first business, and I've been in a Mastermind for the last 17 years, and I've been hosting them for 8 years now. Over the last 8 years, our clients have grown on average by 26% per annum for every year that they remain in Mastermind. I would honestly and challenge anyone to be able to suggest as to how you will ever achieve that level of growth consistently without understanding it takes a different level of thinking, it takes a different level of action to achieve a different level of outcome. I'd love to be able to share more with you. So if you want to be able to learn more, simply scan the page today right there to be able to look at the landing page that Jamie and I have put together about Circle Mastermind and understand a little bit more about how thinking differently can completely transform the results in your business. God bless. Take care. Thanks very much.
Love that. Some great comments there on the questions that you've asked.